Welcome back to the Thrive in Wabash County podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Alex Downard, and tonight in the studio, I am fortunate to be joined with Brian Howenstine, who is a proud small business owner here in Wabash County, a man of faith, family, this community through and through. And I'm really excited about this conversation that we have here for you. So Brian, thank you very much for taking the time.
Hey, appreciate it. As we've talked, I'm the number one fan of the Thrive in podcast. It's fantastic. You guys are doing a great job. So I'm honored to be here and to be able to sit down and chat with you and tell you a little bit about where I've been, what I've done. But I came to Wabash in 1991, and I own the Wabash Hardware Store. It's been many names through the years, and now it's Wabash Hardware. We're affiliated with Do It Best. And so came to Wabash in 1991 as a 22-year-old kid to run a hardware store. And it has evolved into 35, now almost 35 years of just greatness, because Wabash County is the best place. It's awesome. I call it home. I grew up in Decatur, Indiana. Grew up there, went to IU down in Bloomington. So the move here was unique in the fact that I didn't know anybody, but it was also at the same time, I just buried myself in my work, in my business, in my people, and also in the community. So that's the basic startup of why and how I got here.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Brian. I think that hearing you talk with the passion of what you've seen in this community, we'll get into all that tonight, but I see a lot of that and what I feel about this community when I showed up here as an 18-year-old and then as 22-year-old starting my career into this community. It's great to hear you talk about 35 years of how you feel about this place, and I hope that someday that I can sit in that chair and do the same thing in building my career here as you have in Wabash County and in this community. Owning a hardware store in Wabash and in Decatur and other places, which we'll talk about. How does somebody get into the hardware business? How did you get into the hardware business? And then specifically, how did you choose Wabash as the place?
All right. Well, it's a little bit of a lengthy story, but I'll start back. When I was 4 years old, my parents bought a hardware store in Decatur, Indiana. And so we've been in the hardware business now 53 years, headed to 54 in Decatur. So that's where I was born, I was born in Fort Wayne, but we moved to Decatur in 1972. So my dad was an electrical engineer by training, just wanted to always own his own business. So that was the kind of the entrance in. Dad was, I've shared the story with numerous people, but it's really unique. My dad was looking for something to do, and he was working as an electrical engineer. At the time, he had two of his three, I have an older sister and a younger brother, but he was working part-time at Wicks Lumber up in Fort Wayne just because he wanted something else to do. Didn't like being behind a desk as an engineer. He wanted to move, and he loved helping people. And my dad was unbelievably talented. He was one of those guys that he could do anything. He was nearly an accountant. He was a computer programmer. He could build houses. He could sweat copper pipes. He could put windows in. He could just do anything. He just could do everything. So that led him into wanting to own his own business. So his lifetime, he was an avid reader of the Wall Street Journal. And it's probably one of my favorite stories. And as it's told to me, he was in the classified ad section looking for job opportunity, not maybe job, but at that time, who knows what they posted, right? But at this point in time, they had a location established for a coast-to-coast hardware store.
And this is an ad in the Wall Street Journal.
Ad, like in the classified section or something. Okay. Become your own hardware store owner, something like that, right?
Yeah.
We have an established location. So they had already had a place they wanted to put this hardware store. And they said, anybody interested, please reply. So that started the ball rolling. That would have been in 1971-ish area. So him and mom, they were 28 years old with really 2 kids and mom pregnant. And they scraped enough money together to open up a hardware store. And they went into Decatur and opened that hardware store. So I was 4, my sister was 5, and my little brother was 6 months old. So you can imagine that, right? Just the daunting task of being an entrepreneur and a young family and a 7-day-a-week job, right?
Yeah.
Because that's what they did. They just ingrained themselves into the business, and lots and lots of life lessons along the way, which we can talk about, which also a lot of things that my parents exampled to me through the years led me to all the things that I've tried to do as a steward in the community, right? To do something here and make a difference in Wabash County, because people and in Adams County, in Decatur, my mom and dad did all those things because we feel, and I feel such an obligation back to the community, because they provide and have provided us with a business, and they shop in our stores, and there's just this feeling of giving back that they just ingrained so deeply from very young. You know, I realized it more as I got older, but yeah.
I've heard you talk about your service, community service, your involvements for all those reasons you just described. But I think it's important that our listeners hear the types of things your parents were involved in when they opened their hardware store. What were those things that they chose as their cause or their involvements indicator when they were getting involved that instilled those values you just talked about?
Yeah, and that's so the very first thing my dad did when he got it, and this is this is more memory from the things on the walls, right? The My dad was the president of the Optimist Club in 1974, so he just come to town. Then he became the president of the Chamber of Commerce, right? Did that thing. My mom subsequently was the president of the chamber and did a small stint after all the kids were gone. She actually was like the executive director of the chamber in Adams County for a couple of years. Those were a couple of things, but also my dad was super active in junior achievement, like really big, and at that time the senior class teaching. So that's just a sampling of Little League baseball, you know, all the things that we did with sponsorships and different things where those were the examples that I grew up with. And it was so, and not that it doesn't feel like an obligation, it just feels natural. I mean, it's never been anything that it's just what I do, right? It's just what we do. We just give back, and we just honor the community with our service, and hopefully with, you know, obviously our time and our talent, and be able to add something to it. But I just think it's so important. So they exampled that from the very beginning, right? I saw that happen and saw all the things they were involved in and all the things they did. I didn't understand the time commitment part of it until I came to Wabash, right? You don't get any of that. You don't even get, and that was even eye-opening for me when I came here at 22, was I didn't realize all the things my dad did, right? Everything he did to run a hardware store, everything he had to do from scheduling to payroll to all these other things. It was just crazy those first few years. So.
And so you remember maybe to what it was like when your parents, as you got older, were small business owners, maybe not from the very beginning, right, when they first bought the store, but then those late nights or on the weekends, right, him going to work. And as you were coming in today, you were describing just how you're instilling not only the service part that you saw in your parents, but working hard and being a small business owner here in the county the same way they have, right? You raised your family and your girls through that time of you being a small business owner here in this community. Talk a little bit about, so you're 22 years old, you come to Wabash, you're starting this hardware store. What's that journey been to then raising your family through the business to where you stand today?
Right. So just to fill in some of my favorite parts of the story, because I started working when I was 8, so I've been in the hardware business, literally in the store for about 50 years now. Officially an employee of the company or whatever since 1981. So everybody can do the math. But so grew up through high school, was, you know, every Friday night, worked every Friday night, every Saturday morning, typically, sometimes all day Saturday. But it was just expected, right? Get off for certain things. If there was a home game or football game or whatever, we would not. But this is starting when I was 12. So I did not like my father at all. I mean, I don't mean I didn't like him. I deeply respected my father even at that age. But it was just like, Dad, come on. I want to live a life. And he's like, nope, we got to get this done. And we're still relatively small. I mean, those first few years from 4 to probably I was 8 or 9, either my mom and dad one of them was in our store every single day, 7 days a week. So my mom would work Sundays so my dad could have the day off. I mean, that's how it was, right? So grew up, went through all that, went through high school, hated it, couldn't wait to go find another job. So my first job in between my senior year of high school and freshman year of college, I went to work for the City of Decatur as a painter. So me and another guy, classmate of mine, worked with the street department, and we painted all the curbs in Decatur with a 4-inch roller. There was no sprayers. There was a weed eater, a blower, and 4-inch rollers. And we did that all summer long. And then we got the joy of being able to ride the garbage truck because it was city owned. So
That was the highlight.
that was the highlight.
That was the highlight.
You always had, at least there was one of the garbage men would take a week off, and you rode the truck the whole week. And so that was an inspiration to go back to school. Still didn't have any interest in the hardware business. I had zero. I mean, I spent my freshman year at IU, was planning on being some type of an accountant in the finance area. Another summer back at the street department, and then back to IU in the fall. So that's where the shift really started for me, was from sophomore year, fall semester, just kind of floundering a little bit, feeling really bad. My parents were helping me through school, pretty much putting me through school. And, I thought, man, I could at least offer up a little bit of beer money, right? That I could at least pay a little bit of my way. And I thought, well, what am I going to do, right? What can I go do? Oh, I could go work in a hardware store. That's not what I want to do, but I thought, well, that would be relatively easy. So long story short on that, I ended up getting a job with one of my dad's friends in Martinsville, Indiana, and started working for Stan, and called him on the phone. I still remember the conversation like it was yesterday. I called him. I said, hey, it's Brian Howenstine, my dad, Jim. I know your dad. I said, hey, if you have any opportunities for a little bit of part-time work, I'd love to come and work for you. It's 20 minutes up the road. Be happy to. He goes, can you start Friday? I'm like, don't you want to do an interview? He goes, no. He goes, we don't need to do an interview as the son of one of those things. So ended up going there, worked the rest of my college career at least about 20 hours a week in his store for every Friday night, usually Saturdays, and then every other Sunday and whatever. But I found out I absolutely loved the hardware business. And I found out that I actually probably knew a little bit about it, and Stan gave me an opportunity to learn from somebody other than my dad, right? He gave me some experiences of how he ran a business that my dad didn't, because he was completely different. They were totally different operators, both very good, very successful, but totally different. So that was my propulsion into saying, hey, I think I want to come back in the business. So
your junior and your senior year of college is when you really got back in through Stan down at that store.
So I worked for him during school, worked at home in the summers. And I told this story just today or yesterday. But I decided I wanted to come back in the business. And my dad and I were sitting, he was down for Dad's weekend for a fraternity thing. So I must have been a junior. And I said, hey, I don't think I'm going to finish after this year. I'm going to be done. I want to come home and start working with you and Mom in the family business. And we're sitting in the Mustard's restaurant in Bloomington, Indiana, which is closed now. But it was an iconic place back then. And he looked at me and he says, no, you're not. I said, well, why not? He said, you can't come to work for me until you finish your education. I said, why? It's not going to make really any difference. He goes, in your lifetime, people can take everything away from you. They can take your house, and they can do all these things can be taken from you. Nobody, after you've earned your degree, can come back and say, I want that back. And so he says, you stay in school, you finish, and then you can come to work with me and Mom. So senior year, graduated, got through IU, came home. I worked from May until the end of December at home in Decatur, lived with my mom and dad, and then came to Wabash. So the backside of that is we owned Wabash with Roger and Judy Moore from Manchester. Yep. They were our partners from 1982 to 1990. So Roger had moved his store, as you know, where they're at now, but they used to have a little downtown building in Manchester, and Roger moved it to the old grocery store, and he was going great guns, and he just kind of wanted out. So it was just the perfect timing. And we bought them out, and I came to Wabash in 1991, excited, little bitty store, 4 employees. The first thing we did was expand and grow the footprint of the store, right? And I dove in. I think I had maybe one high school person, but my full-time people I had 4 just wonderful people that were all at that point in time 40 and over. So I'm 22 years old, and I'm diving in to lead these people. I think I know somebody else that might feel that same way, right? But yeah, it's a big deal. So came in, and And at that time, hadn't met my wife, was just deep in the business, right? Every day, 7 days a week, as many hours as I could put in, meet as many people as I could, got involved. Probably, I'm trying to think, one of the first, chamber was one of the very first things I got involved in. So,
Followed on your folks' footsteps.
yeah, right. Yeah, got involved. Somebody asked me to an event, and I started in that space. So, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So now fast forward, you have how many employees?
Well, between the two stores now, it's seasonal, right? Between 30, 35, 40 people. It just depends on the time of year.
Yeah,
So,
and that's part-time, full-time opportunities for people over the summer.
yep, everything. Yep.
That's
Yep.
wonderful. That's wonderful. Brian, you and I had not worked together or anything or met until really I started on the Imagine 185 work and
Right.
started doing some work alongside the Community Foundation. And I would hear my predecessor, Patty Grant, early on in my time with Imagine 185, talk about her board chair, Brian Howenstine, right? And I kept hearing your name, met you, and then I think when we started the Wabash County Development Corporation, which was the housing nonprofit organization, asked you as board chair of the Community Foundation to also serve. The organization still today work closely together, right? And so
Right.
asked you to serve on that board. And that was really, I think, your and I's first time spending time together and through that, right? And from the jump, it was just like your heart for service. You were talking about your parents and what you admired about your mom and your dad and what rubbed off on you. And I will just say now, full disclosure, Brian is the board chair of the Community Foundation, and he's going to talk here shortly about his service with the foundation, what he's seen, why that organization over the 14 years
Yep,
that it'll
14.
be,
Yep.
14 years of volunteering with the Community Foundation of Wabash County. But as my board chair, just always, doesn't matter what it is, a text, a phone call late at night, on the weekends, just a heart for service, never about the notoriety part of it, right? And I think that's part of the reason why I never had come across you, or we hadn't worked on much of anything in my time prior to this work, just because you approach everything with the Community Foundation just with that heart of service, and it doesn't matter what it is, right? You're always willing to do that. A model board member and board chair brainstorming through tough decisions, brainstorming through left or right with an exciting decision, right? And have so appreciated the opportunity to get to work alongside you the last couple of years. But talk a little bit about, maybe before we get into Community Foundation, how you were approached to join the Community Foundation board, and then what your time's been like in your service.
To the foundation, yeah. So, and I did in the 90s, I spent some Rotary. I was a treasurer Rotary I was 15 years there until I opened another business in Huntington, and I just got to be too busy. So I dropped out of that. I was involved with JA at one point in time. I was chair of the chamber back in, 2000, I think. Went through all that season of life and kind of hit a little bit of a lull, I would say, in the mid-2000s from active service, just because my kids, right? I had, at that time, Elizabeth would have been, 8 to 10. Emily was 7. We were starting to get super busy. So that was, up to about 2009-ish, 10. And then I was asked, which I don't even know how they found that, but I was asked to serve on the search committee for the chair of wasn't the chair, it would be the president or CEO of the foundation. And so I did, and I sat on that committee with Patty Grant and Steve Hammer. I thought, man, I don't know why they asked me, but anyways, went through that process, hired somebody, didn't work out, and then Patty came and took over. And I think subsequently I started on the investment committee. Is where I started initially. I served, and I think that would have been in 2011, because that was right at the beginning of Gary Jabara, right? I was in that beginning on that committee for a short time, and then they moved me over to development, and I started there. And then 2013, I think, was when I started on the board, and then soon after on the exec committee. So I've been in the foundation work for quite a while. I should also, I think it's worth noting, my dad was the chair of the foundation in Decatur as well, and I saw that. I mean, and that's not the reason, but it still speaks to that whole heart and place you want to be with serving and doing all that. So,
for our listeners, why the Community Foundation? Why get involved with the foundation, with all of the different opportunities in Wabash County, the fantastic nonprofit organizations we have here, some of which you've served on? Is this the longest serving tenure you've had on a board? And why do you choose our organization?
Well, I think yes, for sure, the longest. I've done various stints, of 3 or 6 years on other boards, but yeah, this one without question has been the most fulfilling from my perspective of what we're doing in Wabash County. So I look at that in all different areas, right? It's scholarships, and it's all this ground up work, from the ground up work, grassroots efforts that we're doing that just matter, right? It just makes a difference in so many things that we don't understand until later. And we just say, yes, we're going to do it, right? So it's all those things of what we're trying to accomplish and how we're trying to move the needle here. And you've been involved. It's the evolution of everything, right? So it's looking forward to, I remember so deeply the Imagine 185 conversations and all the things that we went through, and at that time, the Promise Scholarship and the beginning stage of that was just crazy, right? We sat around in that meeting, and I shared that story with all the staff in an email a few weeks ago, and I remember sitting there, and Julie and Patty brought that, and we're like, okay, let's try, right? And I think that's the other part, right? It's the just trying. Let's just try it.
Lean into it.
Yeah. Lean into it. Yeah, let's see what we can do. And the community foundation all around they'll outwork anybody. I believe that. I've seen it. I've been involved in it. They will work as hard as possible to make it work. So that's been really, really awesome to see. So all those things culminated into just that complete joy about being involved. So
thanks, Brian, for sharing that. I think what's been really exciting is to come into the Community Foundation now, going on 9 months in March of this year, to come into an organization that is such strong governance, right? From the board of directors to the committee structure. You've served on several of those committees, as you've talked about, and then now sit on each of them as the board chair. This is your 6th year as board chair, going into your 7th year as board chair. But for me to come into a team and a staff of older folks, right?
Yeah.
Older than me folks, our entire team, and then our board, to get to walk into an organization that's so strongly governed, that is so positioned well because of Patty's leadership, because of the board's leadership, and now to get to work on opportunities of how do we take the organization into the next 10 years, right? Into the future, to continue to change the future of Wabash County. And so we've had an exciting couple wins lately for that now branded Imagine Early program, right? Which used to be the Promise. And to see board members, you at 14 years, several others in the room at 10 plus years of service, when we get to announce these exciting developments or exciting updates for the program that have only been made possible because of those of you that were in the room 10 years ago when Patty and Julie came after, like they always do, right? Pouring into this concept of what does this look like? And nobody really knowing at that moment, right? You all leaning in and believing in them, and then to see what's happened over the last 10 years and just to imagine what's next. Our community stepped up when they've seen our organization committed to it. Our community continues to step up. Outside folks from the community and across the country continue to recognize not just the research about the Imagine Early program, but to financially support the Imagine Early program really since its inception. All of that would only be possible because of the leadership of you and those others that were in the room back then and leaning into that. And so that's been one of the most exciting parts about this work, is because of the strong foundation that we have to stand on that makes the future possibilities endless for our work.
Well, absolutely. And I think the other important part is what you said is those, we get little wins along the way, right? These little things just add up until we get these like home runs. Those are the best, right? Those are the ones. It just makes you feel like, gosh, all those decisions, all the heartache, and there was turmoil along the way back in those days. It was hard stuff. We were building a program out that nobody else had ever done. We did groundbreaking work, and Julie and Patty became nationally known. If anybody talks about this type of program, they know who Julie and Patty are. And we built a reputation, we built trust, we absolutely have integrity, right, in everything that we do. And all of that and I see that now. It's just that snowball just keeps getting bigger and bigger. And that is really awesome. It's just fantastic. It's just a wonderful feeling to see how this is changing. We're getting to see the end of those first kids, not the end, but kind of the beginning of the first kids, right? We
Yeah.
get to see the fruits of that labor and see what does that young person have available to go to college or go to Ivy Tech or go be a welder, go be a pipe fitter, go whatever. But you've got a jump start. You might have $2,000 that you didn't have,
Yeah.
and that's because they earned it. And we always have to say that, right? The kids earned it, but also just the movement behind that.
Yeah, and it's the perception change, right?
Absolutely.
That's the coolest part. Just the perception of the students and the families, how they think about education after high school or training or certificates after high school, but also building assets, right? It
Right.
allows just the importance of building assets early. The mindset shift is just as important as the monetary assets to be able to support the student's future.
Absolutely, because I think that was and I think even in the early stages, that was the selling point to everybody, right?
Yeah.
It was the aspiration of being able to do something, as opposed to somebody saying you'd never be able to do that, right? But no, I've got something here. I can do this. So it's that, like exactly what you said. It's that mindset change that we can now start to really look at and really evaluate. And we've changed. The program's evolved and it's changed, and we're doing other things now that are going to have effects as well. So that's really, really, really good work. Really good stuff.
Even before I started the Community Foundation, and now I'm biased, but before I always used to say we always talk about how this community, we invest in people here, right? Wabash County invests in our people, right? There is no better example across the county than the Imagine Early program, where we are literally investing money alongside families. We're investing money to prepare our students and our kids for the future, right? And those are the future business owners, leaders of our organizations. We're pouring actual assets and resources into them, investing those resources to make sure that student's set up for success. And we hope that it's success and they remember when they go to raise their kids, a community that invested in them. And we've created that place of opportunity for those students and kids to move back or to stay when they graduate.
Yep.
For those that want more information about the Imagine Early program, you can check out the website, but definitely go listen to one of our early episodes on this podcast where Patty Grant and I dive deep into the Imagine Early program, its history. Patty talks a little bit about in that episode the unknowns, right? She'll talk about how all of the other child savings accounts programs across the country are by right, meaning that a student's born into a specific district or a state and they set money aside for that student's future. Our program's different in terms of we're one of the smallest communities, if not the smallest in the country, that has an early awards and a child savings account program like this, but it's also based on behaviors, right? It's changing and funding those behaviors of students along the way. And those programs across the country, as Patty would go and speak at different things or they would talk to her, they'd say, there's no way you're going to be able to sustain that program without government support, right? Without the government putting money into it. And the Imagine Early program continues to be sustained and will be sustained and endowed now by private support of our community rallying around from those outside the community that have seen the program. And so leadership, and I would love to hear some of those values, Brian, that you talk about and how it aligns with where you choose to serve, right, with the Community Foundation. But leadership is not knowing what the end looks like sometimes and making those decisions and leaning in, as Patty recommended to you all, and you all leaned in that moment of not knowing what 10 years down the road, seeing the Imagine Early program today. Right. So I don't know if you want to speak a little bit about this, maybe some of those values that your parents instilled in you and that you still carry forward today, both in your service and in your business.
Well, I think it's obvious it's the fact that you've got to work hard to achieve the results, right? There's no shortcuts. There's no way around it. You got to work hard. You got to do the thing to get the results. The other thing that I saw so deeply was the generosity of the people of our county, the generosity of the people to continue to give and say, yep, we support this. We want this to happen. And the fact that it is now going to be an endowed program and sustainable and stable, I think is a good word, right? And all of those things are things that we do in our business, right? We want, that's what we try and do. We work hard. We try and, we build, whether it's programs in my business, it's, I like to hope one of the things that I deeply try and build is culture, right? Culture in the business, customers, you identify, I think sometimes we make things too, not difficult, but we try and strategize too much. And in some ways, I just tried to always just pick a point of what is the most important thing, right? And the most important thing in my business, and this is no different than the foundation. The most important thing in my business is my customers and my people, period. If I take care of my customers and my people, it becomes a good place. And so we're trying to take care of the customers, which is the children in our community, right? It's the same thing. It flows right into that same thought process. It's like, we need to take care of the kids. We need to, not to take care of them, but give them an opportunity. That's what this whole thing's about. It's all about opportunity. So those things are really, really, really important. And we have to strategize, but I think sometimes if you can just narrow it down to the really most basic things and build off of that, some of the other stuff just comes along, right? I think we know that through the early award. I mean, we know that those things come on the backside, right? That we don't expect. Those are good things.
And that ties back to your original thing about hard work.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
It's overtime. You work every day and it's rewarded, right?
Absolutely.
And that's, again, a decade plus of leadership and hard work from the board and from the staff at the Community Foundation is a testament to that.
Absolutely. And you get, there's no question about that. I mean, that's we've had just dynamite board members. You can't ever not speak about, and I was trying to make that point too, we can't ever not talk about Patty and what she did and what Julie did and does. Julie still does. And all of the other staff that have really, Melissa, she's been there since, she was there shortly after we started. I mean, just all the things, right? So all the things, Joanne and Judy, everybody does. Sam, I mean, they all, Terry, they all do a great job. I mean, but they all work hard and they all do it for, I still believe, truly, they all do it for the reason of the county. And I think that's the critical thing. I did it in my business because I wanted a place people could come to shop and a place people could come to work that was good and then ultimately give back to the community through that, right? That's it's just the circle of things that we do. And I think everybody's got a different feeling about that, but that's just something it's a non-negotiable for me. It's just, I feel very, and I never use the word obligated, but just the opportunity to give back. I'm blessed to be able to have the opportunity to give back to the county, give back to some organization. And we do that in all different ways, not just through what I do, but what the business does, gives, donates this or that or here and there. It's all because of Wabash. It's all to make Wabash better, period.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one thing from our team at the Community Foundation we talk a lot about is that sometimes it's daunting work, right? Like anybody's business, right? Or organization that you work in. But us not taking for granted the opportunity to be so close to the impact in such a wide variety of things in our community, right? I mean, you talked a little bit about the Community Foundation. There is no other organization that has the opportunity to be as close as we are to the impact on the breadth of things that our organization touches, whether that's through our staff resources and time that we get to work on a project or program, or monetarily working with one of our nonprofit organizations or with our education work. Just so extremely, extremely fortunate.
Right. I mean, yeah, just everything that we get a front row seat to that. It's fantastic. It really is.
And not only building on where we've been, right, but where we're going to, the exciting part that allows us to get there.
Right, because all of those steps are part of the next part of the story, right? So it's all as everything that builds from 2016 when we started this specifically to today, but what's happening in the next 5 years, right? That's exciting. That's what you're driving now. That's what you're leading the charge on. But that's really exciting because you can't get there without having all those things behind you that keep pushing you to that next level and to what that next move is to make it better. The next strategy. Who are we going to expand this to? Who's the next people that we can grow this into that we can make an impact?
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Of all of those things in your 14 years, will be 15 by the time you're done, what are you most proud of from your time volunteering with the Community Foundation?
That's a great question. I would say it's probably strictly, not generally, the impact that we have. on the county, right? The other part of the impact piece, and I've already said it, but the other part of the impact piece that's so critical is that we're trusted and that they know we're good stewards of the financial part of our endowment and that we work hard and that we have integrity in everything we do. That's paramount. I mean, Patty and I talked about that at length, and we do too, right? The trust that we have earned, we don't want to ever take that for granted. And that's probably the overall picture. The 30,000-foot picture is that. The organization is just full of that. The work, the early learning work, the early childhood, comes on the heels of that to some degree. It's been around a long time because we did begindergarten back in, you may have read some of those past things when we started that in 2012, I think, maybe 13. But those are really, really important things. And we're helping, I believe we're, helping the children, and we know that they're the future. And that is such good work. It's such and you can't not say, well, it's, we have these great scholarships that we give every year for seniors in high school. That's wonderful stuff. It's just great work. But those little things I think are going to make a difference, but it's over time. And sometimes we look at those things that we want immediate results, right? It's like raising your kids. You want immediate results from your children to be good or to do this, or to that. And sometimes you don't get that until later.
Plant seeds.
Plant the seeds. You just got to keep working hard. You got to keep doing what you do. You got to be disciplined, right? You know that. We have to be, no matter what we do, we have to be disciplined in that. So, yeah, I think it's been so deeply rewarding because I feel like and I don't even feel, I know we make a difference in the county. So
yeah, absolutely. Thanks for sharing that. Young person is listening to this episode today, trying to figure out what they're going to do next in life, or if there's parents listening that has children that are coming up or kids in high school that may not be sure of what their path looks like. What's a couple pieces of advice or a piece of advice through all of your time, whether it be from community service or in your business, that you would have for those young people today?
Oh, relate it back to some of my story with my own children, right? Because I raised two daughters, and I told them early on, I didn't want a lot from, I wanted a lot from them, but I didn't have this long laundry list. You got to be a straight A student. None of that stuff was paramount, right? I told them, I said, there's just a few things I want. I want you to love God. I do. It was the most important thing for me. Was their faith. I wanted them to be responsible for everything they did. And it didn't matter what it was, but that was one thing my mom and dad always held my feet to the fire about responsibility, about what your decisions are your decisions. You have to own them. So whatever that is, it can be, and as they age and as these kids grow, those are important things to remember. And I had another one that I won't mention. It was about who they marry. I didn't want to marry jerks, but I don't have that yet. But anyways, and then probably the most important thing, and what I really tried to instill is I said, I want you to find something you love to do. I think sometimes people chase money instead of passion at work, and not everybody has to go to college, but somebody, man, I've seen some of these kids that are just unbelievably talented young people that would be fantastic HVAC guys, electricians. Somebody wants to open a garage door business. Go do it. Be a plumber. I don't care. Go be an engineer. Go get technical training. Be a doctor. All those things. But what's your passion? And I related that to the girls in the fact that I have absolutely this would be 22, from 22 forward, but pre-22, I've already said I didn't like my dad or my job. I guess I started liking it when I was 19 or 20, but I said, I've been so blessed because I love what I do. I love what I do. And I know you understand that when I say that I just love what I do. And it's something I feel very, very fortunate, very blessed that I can say that. And I think that's the passion, right? You got to find that. And I don't know that you can give anybody advice on that, but I think you can help promote that in what they decide they want to do, right? And it could be, literally could be anything. It can be anything. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to try. Don't be afraid to be a 22-year-old Alex or a 22-year-old Brian and try and do something that's not normal. It's not normal well, your situation's not so far removed. You came to a county that you didn't grow up here. I didn't grow up here. Yeah. I moved here at 22 as well. I mean, those are things that, you can't be afraid of. But you fell in love with Wabash because you were in Manchester, right? I mean, that's why you stayed.
Yeah.
Right. So,
absolutely.
So that's the passion part of it. Find something you're passionate about.
Yeah. And it doesn't make the hard days less hard, but when you find that purpose and passion, you know why you're doing what you're doing every single day, right?
Yeah.
It's when you have those hard days and lose sight of why. But if you have that purpose in the work that you do, it gets you through,
Absolutely.
right? The hard times, the exciting times.
Absolutely. 100%.
Yep, for sure. Less serious note.
Yeah.
Your wife, Amy, so 2 daughters and your wife, Amy, you and Amy have one night open in Wabash County. Where are you going? What are you doing in Wabash County?
Well, if it's
when you're not working at the hardware store.
I'm not working at the hardware store. One night is probably the speakeasy.
Man.
Yeah.
We've got to find, I think the last guest I asked that to said the speakeasy as well. The 950 speakeasy in LeGros.
Well, it's, 2 miles from our house. It's easy. It's comfortable. It feels great. I mean, that's not throwing shade on anything else, but that's just something that, and it's the, and I know Justin was on your podcast as well, but he's built, it's just kind of a community thing, right? And it feels that way. And you've been down there. You can see people from all over. So it's very unique. So that would be probably my call on that one for sure.
Yeah, that's great. Of all the you are a podcast fan, a Thriving Wabash podcast fan. Of all the episodes, which is your favorite episode?
Well, I have 2 that are like my top 2. One, I can't help but just not absolutely love your conversation with Patty because it's Patty, right?
That's right.
It's because it's Patty. Patty and I worked together so many years and we developed such a close friendship. And to see her sit down with you, which was so unique, and the fact that you could do that, I mean, that was cool because you as the new CEO and her as the former, she can just feed you so much information, as I know she has. That was one. And then the one with Matthew Perkey.
Oh, Josiah White's,
Yeah, I mean, just phenomenal, right? I sent you that quote that he said. I was just so deeply touched by the work they're doing and what they're doing with these kids and what they're trying to do and what I think their vision for that is. And I just think it's fantastic. But they're all great. Everything, all the people that have been on and shared, I mean, you'll never run out of people to talk to. That's a great thing, right?
No, our community's full of it.
Absolutely.
Right? Our community's full of them.
Community's full of them, for sure.
As I don't want to say wind down because I don't think you'll wind down ever, but with you and your business as you continue to develop that and then into the future, but also your community service and what you've chosen to spend your time doing, hundreds of hours over a year that you dedicate to the Community Foundation and our work, right? Between meetings, events, board meetings, committee meetings, right? Phone calls over in the night, right?
Yeah.
All of those hours you've put in, unfortunately, at least officially, at the end of next year, you will term off the Community Foundation Board of Directors. What is next for you in terms of where you think you want to spend your time? Have you thought about that at all? And what does the future look like for Brian Howenstine the next few years?
That's a great question. I wrestle with that. It's time, obviously, through just the governance part of the foundation that I go because I've served up my terms and all that. But I've wrestled with that because how deeply I love that and how much I love the foundation. So I've made that comment to you. I said, Alex, we got to find something for me next, right? What's my next? Because I don't know yet what it is. I have a little bit of a thought. I just don't know how it's going to play out. I'm going to give it a little bit of time, and I don't want to jump the gun because I'm going to end as Patty would say. I'm going to finish well, right? I'm going to finish my commitment to the Community Foundation well. I'm going to finish till next December 31st and do what I've been honored to do, right? I said this to you. I've said it to Patty. I've said it to multiple people. This being the chair, and with the foundation, but specifically being the chair for 7 years, or at the end of 7 years, has been the honor of my life. I mean, it's it's been a huge deal. It really has. So the next thing, I'm not going to not do something, right? I'm going to do something. I'll find the right fit for me, but it'll be something that it'll be something that fills my heart. And I think that's the passion, right? That's the passion part. It fills your heart up. It makes you feel like you're making a difference or that you can help make a difference. And that's where I'll end up. I think it's because I won't not do something.
And we're so fortunate in this community to have options for that,
absolutely.
right? I mean, anywhere you look or turn in our county, there's a lot of really good organizations and people working really, really hard, whether it's addressing a community need, it's amenities with the Honeywell Center, right? Making Wabash County the place that it is today doesn't happen overnight, right? And it's generations of leaders, generations of people that continue to pour into this community, you being one of those. And from the Community Foundation standpoint, in my short time getting to work with you, but listening to Patty, listening to other board members, your time and what will be 15 years and 7 as chair of the foundation has been invaluable to our organization and wouldn't be where we're at without your leadership and the other leaders around you. Hearing you talk, Brian, and the impact that Patty's had on you and your journey on me. I talk about the time from when I was announced as taking over for Patty at the foundation to today, even and every day and every conversation that I have with her. Just her impact will continue long after her, not just from the program she started at the foundation, but how she's poured into people, right? And the impact she's left on us as leaders, and then where we take that in our journey.
And I think
our county's full of people that do that, right?
Absolutely. And I think that we all develop those things, and we've all had those people in our life that we look at, and we look at those mentors that we really value. And there's been tons in my life. But some of the most impactful people in my life. My father obviously was my first one, right? He's been forever. Even today, I think about what would Dad do. I think my dad passed away 12 years ago. I still think about that, right? And then Stan's my second mentor, right? He's the guy who showed me a different way. And then, obviously Patty, huge impact in my life, huge impact. Dave Heist has made and Dave and I not working super close, but just his impact, right? Just the guy. He's the guy. You want to move him out and call Dave. I just think the world of him. And then I think you always have to have those local people that just you look at and go, that guy's doing it. And Ken Henderson at Schlemmer Brothers is one of those. He's one of those guys that I just so deeply respect the work that he does. And it's not the work. It's just how he does things. And I just think it's important to develop those people that will impact your life in your leadership as you continue on. Who do you see? You've got tons. You've got so many people that you know, but there's some that stand out very, very closely to that, and I think it's really important.
Absolutely. I say that's one of the best things about living in Wabash County and our community is that general spirit that exists of wanting to make this a better place, right? You mentioned the long list of podcast guests we could have that could get on here and give this similar value, similar just commitment to making this community a better place in the future. And that's what makes this place special is the opportunity to get in early if you're willing to lean in to make that impact, right, in Wabash County. And that's what's really exciting. And I would say to anybody that's listening to this that hears the passion and genuine organicness in Brian's voice and you want to get involved in the community and you don't know what that looks like yet, I encourage you to reach out to the Community Foundation, right? Call our office, send us an email, and we will listen to what you're really passionate about and find what that organization or cause is in our community to get you that experience and opportunity to make that impact because it's extremely fulfilling, whether it's for your job, right, professionally, or where you choose to spend your time as a volunteer.
Well, you can look at the list of some of the things that we've done, and it speaks just to that. Some of the things, not what we've done, that have grassrooted out of Wabash County. Shelley Myers, right? She came to the foundation. She's Cheryl Working. Yeah. That was born out of her passion for her work and what she loved, and same with Shelley. So I mean, there's so many of those stories, right? I mean, and you can look at our list of things through the years that we've done. They may not be endowed now. They might be they might be been a short-term project, but all those things were because somebody was passionate about it. somebody wanted to do it. Mike Beecham wanted to clean up the river. I mean, right? I mean,
Amy Ford wanted to build a trail.
Exactly right. I mean, some of those things, and that's where the foundation can help as well. But just, I mean, if nothing else, even if it's not a foundation project, the contacts and the people that you know, that the staff knows, that the board knows, that's the resource is invaluable. It really is. Again, it's that passion. What do you want to do?
Yeah, absolutely right. Brian, thank you for spending the time with us on the podcast tonight. Appreciate your passion, not only your continued investment in your business and choosing to call Wabash County home, raise your family here, but your commitment again to our community through service is something that is admirable and that I strive for every day. And the opportunity to be around committed volunteers at the committee level, our board level, every day is just a reminder of why our community is so special. So thank you for being one of those leaders and one of those people in our community.
I appreciate that. It's great to sit down and chat with you.
Absolutely. This podcast is made possible through the generous support from our sponsors, the Gilman Investment Fund, the Sandra Kunkel Trust, Mark and Amy Ford, Paperworks Industries, the City of Wabash, the Community Foundation of Wabash County, and Visit Wabash County. Brian, thanks again, and until next time, we'll talk to you soon.